Welcome, everybody. We're going to get started with today's webinar. The Bureau of Justice Assistance's Crisis Response and Intervention Training CRIT Curriculum, they're free training resources for law enforcement. This is a really exciting day for us. We have an incredible slate of speakers that are here with us today that are going to talk to you about these free training resources for law enforcement. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. I will be introducing our speakers in just a minute after I go over a few housekeeping things. My name is Mike Hatch. I'm a senior program manager with the National Policing Institute, and I'll be your moderator today. Quick reminders, the questions, if you have questions throughout the webinar, please submit your questions to the presenters in the Q&A pod. You'll see a Q&A button on your Zoom screen. The presenters will address as many questions as time permits at the end of the presentation. This webinar is being recorded, and the slides will be disseminated in the days following the webinar. We also have ASL interpretation for today's webinar. Today, our ASL interpreters for this meeting are Dave Gratzer and Kip Opperman. Live transcript from Zoom is also available. If you click Live Transcript CC and then select Show Subtitles, the subtitles can, of course, be moved within the window so you can see the slides on your screen as well. I'm going to go ahead and go through our list of speakers today by reading their bios and introducing them to you, and then we'll get started with the presentations. First up is Dr. Robin Engel. Dr. Engel serves as the Senior Vice President at the National Policing Institute. Following over 25 years in academic positions within higher education institutions. As an award-winning researcher, she has partnered with dozens of police agencies in the U.S. and internationally, served as principal investigator for over 100 research studies and projects, and ranked among the top academics nationally in the criminal justice and criminology fields. From 2015 to 2019, she served as the Vice President for Safety and Reform at the University of Cincinnati, where her executive duties included oversight of daily operations and successful implementation of comprehensive police reforms in the aftermath of a fatal police shooting of an unarmed motorist. As a top scholar and trusted lead authority in police service, Dr. Engel oversees the Institute's vast scientific investments designed to translate and integrate research into practice. It's Murphy's Law. I'm in a room where the light just turned off on me. So next up is Chanson Neither. Chan is a senior director at Policy Research Associates. In this capacity, Mr. Neither oversees a portfolio of criminal justice and behavioral health focused training and technical assistance initiatives for PRA. In his primary role, Mr. Neither serves as the director of SAMHSA's Gain Center for Behavioral Health and Justice Transformation. As director of SAMHSA's Gain Center, Mr. Neither oversees all training and technical assistance activities for the center, including how being trauma-informed improves criminal justice system responses training initiative and sequential intercept model or SIM mapping workshops. Mr. Neither also serves as PRA's director for the Academic Training Initiative and is a former director of the Law Enforcement and Community Crisis Intervention Team Training Model program funded under BJA's Valor Initiative. Mr. Neither received his master's in community psychology and counseling from Russell Sage Graduate School. He has authored numerous peer-reviewed articles and publications and presents frequently at a variety of national meetings and conferences. Leanne McKingsley is a Senior Director of Disability and Justice Initiatives at the ARC of the United States, where she founded and directs the ARC's National Center on Criminal Justice and Disability, or NCCJD. It's the first national center in the U.S. to address both victim and suspect defendant issues concerning people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. She has worked at the intersection of intellectual and developmental disabilities and criminal justice for 27 years, authored numerous publications, and presents nationally and internationally on a broad array of criminal justice and disability topics. She oversaw the development of NCCJD's signature training, Pathways to Justice, and seeks to establish NCCJD and the ARC's 550-chapter network as the go-to place for information and training on disability and justice. Ms. McKingsley works from her home office in Arlington, Texas. The Rangers just won. I guess I have to acknowledge that. And she holds a BSW, a Bachelor's of Science in Social Work, a Master's of Science in Social Work, and a Master's in Public Administration from the University of Texas, Arlington. Domingo Haraz has more than 40 years of government and public safety experience in dealing with local, state, and federal policies. He currently serves as the Director of Programs for IACP, where he oversees the association's work in the areas of officer safety and wellness, law enforcement officer suicide, mental health, crisis response, children and youth, criminal justice system reform, information sharing and technology, human trafficking, domestic violence and sexual assault, and crime victimization and community police engagement. Prior to joining IACP, he served as the Vice President of the North American Government Affairs for Motorola Solutions. He served as the presidentially appointed U.S. Senate confirmed Director of the Bureau of Justice Assistance, where he became the first Hispanic to hold this position. As the Director of BJA, he led the Department of Justice's largest funding and policy unit for state, local, and tribal criminal justice issues. And finally, our first speaker today is Dr. Brooke Mount. She's a seasoned professional with a wealth of experience in the fields of behavioral health and criminal justice matters. Currently, she holds the position of Senior Policy Advisor within the Justice and Behavioral Health Policy Team at the Bureau of Justice Assistance. Dr. Mount is a recognized subject matter expert who holds licensure as a licensed professional counselor in the District of Columbia. Before joining the BJA, Dr. Mount dedicated a decade of her career to the Court Services and Offender Supervision Agency. During her tenure there, she initially served as a sexual offender treatment specialist, providing clinical and technical guidance to the government, and later assumed the role of program manager of the assessment unit, developing evidence-based assessment and treatment protocols for justice-involved adults and overseeing clinical staff. Prior to her federal service, Dr. Mount worked as a clinical director of a distinguished private forensic psychology practice, the CORT program. Dr. Mount earned a bachelor's degree in psychology from Florida Atlantic University, a master's degree in mental health counseling from Nova Southeastern University, and her doctorate in psychology from Capella University. With that, you can see we have a very distinguished list of speakers today, and I'll turn it over to our first presenter, Dr. Mount.
Thank you very much, Mike, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brooke Mount. Just a little bit about myself. I am here at the U.S. Department of Justice's Bureau of Justice Assistance, or BJA, and I oversee the Justice and Mental Health portfolio, which includes the Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program, this collaborative crisis response and intervention training, and the Connect and Protect Law Enforcement Behavioral Health Response Program. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the Office of Justice Programs. BJA is located within the Office of Justice Programs, or as you may know it as OJP. OJP provides a wide range of services to the criminal justice community in the form of grants, training, technical assistance, and research. OJP is actually one of 3 grant-making components of the Department of Justice, along with the Office on Violence Against Women and the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services. Next slide. BJA's mission is to provide leadership and services in grant administration and criminal justice policy development to support state, local, and tribal justice strategies to achieve safer communities. BJA works with communities, governments, and nonprofit organizations to reduce crime, recidivism, and unnecessary confinement, and promote a safe and fair criminal justice system. Communities can apply and receive grant funding and training and technical assistance that benefit law enforcement, courts, correctional agencies, treatment providers, reentry practitioners, just information technologists, and community-based partnerships to address the unique challenges in that community. Through the development and implementation of policy, services, and sound grant management, BJA strengthens the nation's criminal justice system and restores security in communities. Next slide. This is our director, Carlton Moore, and he was appointed by President Biden in February of 2022. Director Moore leads BJA's programmatic and policy efforts on providing a wide range of resources, including training and technical assistance to law enforcement, courts, corrections, treatment, reentry, justice, information sharing, and community-based partners to address chronic and emerging criminal justice challenges nationwide. The offices within BJA under his oversight include the Policy and Programs Office, Operations, and the Public Safety Officer Benefits Office. Next slide, please. These are our 5 major strategic focus areas. What you see here are key approaches that BJA takes to accomplish objectives and their strategic area of focus. Many of these strategies are put into action through grant programs, such as the one that you're attending today. And these also include a strategic focus on building trust and ensuring effective criminal justice systems, reducing recidivism and unnecessary contact with the criminal justice system, utilization of evidence-based practices, increasing program effectiveness, and ensuring organizational excellence. Next slide, please. And finally, these are the types of activities that BJA is engaged in through programming, policy, and national initiatives. We invest diverse funding streams to accomplish goals, educate by researching, developing, and delivering what works. We aim to equip communities by creating tools and products to build capacity and improve outcomes. And we engage in partnerships by consulting and connecting. Thank you. I'm going to now hand it over to Robin.
Thank you, Brooke, and welcome to everyone. I love what's going on in the chat right now. You can see people from all over the country. It's actually making me a little jealous where you folks are compared to where I am. Not that I don't love Cincinnati, but that's where I'm speaking to you from today. Thank you so much. Keep those chats coming. We love to see that interaction. So I am Robin Engel, Senior Vice President at the National Policing Institute, and I have to tell you, I am so incredibly proud today because I get to help kick off and introduce to the field some of the great work that's been done by the Academic Training Initiative. Now, some of you are like, Academic Training Initiative, why are we calling it that? Well, this was a national initiative that was originally developed. We started back in 2020 because what's not better than to kick off a national initiative in the middle of a pandemic? But we took that all in stride and realized that the work was so important that we had to move forward to help support our law enforcement agencies as they're responding to people with behavioral health conditions and intellectual and developmental disabilities who may be experiencing crisis. And why this particular initiative was so near and dear to me was for 2 reasons. One is I've spent my entire career helping and working to make law enforcement interactions with citizens safer for both the officers and citizens. And this was, of course, right exactly the mission and the work of this initiative. But secondly, on a personal note, my sister has an intellectual and developmental disability. And one of the things that we recognized about training and policing is that we often overlook the IDD component. And so this was an opportunity to really infuse that work and work with experts around the country to be able to do that. And so for me, it was both personally and professionally rewarding to be able to present to you now all of this work that's been done by the partners across this initiative. Now, the initiative focuses specifically on developing training, which you'll hear a lot about, but we also have technical assistance, resources that are available for crisis response, and all of these are based on best practices and supported by research. And that's obviously the academic piece where my team comes in. This technical assistance is really focused on building partnerships. And we want to build those partnerships between police and behavioral health. And also, let's not forget the disability stakeholders that can help to support the implementation of these crisis response programs. Now, a little bit about our partners. So we had a lot of folks, and actually you can move me to the next slide, Julie, please. We had a lot of folks that were involved in this, and of course, sponsored by BJA, and you just heard from Brooke and all the terrific work that they're doing at BJA. But you're also going to hear from all of our partners here. Now, University of Cincinnati is one of the first ones included. So I used to be at the University of Cincinnati, as my bio reflects, and so we started that work there. But then I literally took that academic team and brought them to the National Policing Institute. At NPI, we are completely focused on science and innovation and bringing those resources to the field. So I'm so proud to make that transition and to add NPI into as one of our foundational partners. But we're also partnered with PRA. You're going to hear from Chan here in a little bit. The ARC, you'll hear from Leanne. IACP, we have Domingo represented. Of course, IACP is really that, that's the base to help us push all of this information out and bring that technical assistance and training to life. So proud of all of these partners, which you'll be hearing from here shortly. So if you'll take me to the next slide, please. To enhance police response to persons with behavioral health conditions and developmental disabilities, what is it that this academic training initiative does? Well, we've developed and pilot tested a law enforcement training in crisis response and intervention, and we call this CRIT. It's crisis response and intervention training. So CRIT, call it CRIT, however you like to refer to it. But this is a new and interesting training. You're going to hear so much about what that model looks like and how you can use it right now in your agencies. But it's not just that training that we've been working on, of course. We've been providing technical assistance and the training and other pieces of the training to law enforcement agencies to help support the development and enhancement and, of course, the implementation directly on crisis response programs. And then finally, we have a whole host of resources, and I encourage you to take a look at the academic training website. We'll put that, I'm sure, in the chat for you so that you can find your way to all kinds of resources. And what's really there, we have best practice guides that are available, talk about all of the research of what we know about what works in implementation, and also the various types of crisis response models, including crisis intervention teams, co-responder models, mobile crisis teams, community responder models. We have so many different models right now about how we interact with persons in crisis. And so we wanted to be able to identify and provide for you all of the research that's available about what's effective and what's working. We also have resources on law enforcement responses to persons with developmental disabilities, including a multi-page guide and helps steps for deflection and pre-arrest diversion. And so all of that is available to you. And then finally, just like today, where we're on this webinar, we have several webinars on topics that are related to crisis response that you can peruse at your leisure. These include crisis response for rural communities, integrating behavioral health, peer support specialists into crisis response, and then, of course, transforming dispatch and crisis response too, often not really talked about in our field, but so critically important. So these are the types of topics that we've been focused on. If you'll take me to the next slide. I want to do a little bit of a deep dive here on the actual crisis response and intervention training that we're going to be talking about today. So again, CRIT, we led this development of the CRIT training, and it's really designed to prepare law enforcement officers to respond effectively to persons in crisis. Now, CRIT's overall philosophy, and I think this is just so important, is to emphasize officer safety, public safety, and also diversion from the criminal justice system when possible. So combining all those things together is really the foundation for that CRIT training. The goals of the curriculum that you'll learn about here, and you'll take me to the next slide, please. The goals of this curricula. First, we want to expand officers' knowledge of behavioral health, mental health conditions, substance use disorders, and developmental disabilities. And again, for me, this was very personal for me, as I mentioned, and I'll just tell this very quick story. My sister was 17, I was 15, and we were in a minor car accident. And during that encounter, the police arrived, and I watched my sister, who has an intellectual developmental disability. She was paralyzed with fear. And if that officer didn't know or understand, or if I had not been able to communicate for her during that moment, I often wonder what would have happened in just more of a routine encounter, a minor traffic accident. How would that have worked had someone not been there to help explain to the officer how and why my sister was reacting the way that she was? Now, fast forward all these years, and I won't tell you how many years, but now we're in a position where we can really help to expand officers' knowledge about those types of conditions and other types of conditions as well, so that we can have the best possible outcomes during police-citizen encounters. So we have to create those connections with people with lived experience, people like my sister and many others across the country. And the awareness, too, for officers and for all involved, all of our partners, about what community services are available and how we can really utilize those community services, to get to a better outcome. And all the while emphasizing de-escalation and crisis situations. How can we train our officers to really be able to use those great de-escalation skills and to come to those successful outcomes? And then finally, and of course, one of the most important components of this is to support officer safety and wellness. We know that we need healthy officers to have healthy communities, and that's a key component in everything that we do. Next slide, please. Just talking then a little bit about CRIT. How do we go about that? So CRIT is based on the Memphis model of crisis intervention team training, so CIT training. Like CIT training, the CRIT training is also a 40-hour curricula, and it covers topics related to mental health, substance use, and crisis response. But CRIT also reflects additional extensions beyond the initial CIT training model by incorporating information on intellectual and developmental disabilities throughout that curricula. But it's not exactly the same as CIT either. Well, you might be saying, well, we already have CIT. Why do we need CRIT, and how is that different? So if you'll take me to the next slide, I can start to explain and tease this out for you. CRIT is a training curricula that can be used to support law enforcement agencies in implementing many different types of crisis response models. So where CIT is a community-based program, right, that's the CIT model, CRIT actually can be applied to multiple types of response models, including but not limited to those crisis intervention teams. So CRIT is really designed to complement the delivery and the development of other crisis response models as well. And that's where I think we're really expanding. If you look across the country, we're experimenting with a lot of different types of crisis response, and we need to have a curricula that will support those core components of skills and resources that officers need, regardless of the response model that their agency and communities have adopted. Now, I've talked a lot about CRIT, but I really want to bring in someone who knows this information inside and out. So I'm going to invite Mike Hatch back to speak and talk about what the training actually looks like. I want to put those experts in place. So Mike, if you'll come back, and I also should have noted just for a moment, some of the work of the folks that were originally at the University of Cincinnati that are now at the National Policing Institute. Dr. Hannah McManus and Amanda Schulberg have been instrumental in this work, and they've been working with Mike directly to get this to the field. Mike, if you'll come on back.
Yep, I'm here, Robin. Thank you. So thanks, Robin, for that. And you know, I was lucky enough to go to the pilot sites and test this and see how it worked and get that feedback. And one of our presenters will talk a little bit more about those later. But I just kind of wanted to talk to you about some of the features of the documents that you'll have access to and are available for you to use. So the trainers, so the CRIT trainers and participants, CRIT is designed as a co-trainer model where the lead law enforcement instructor and lead behavioral health or IDD instructor present the information in a partnered type manner. You know, the agencies that are going to use this are encouraged to integrate local community leaders, behavioral health professionals, IDD advocates, and other relevant experts to facilitate the specific modules. Instructors should really have a deep knowledge of their topic and be able to provide real life examples that resonate with the participants and are more will be perceived as very knowledgeable and relatable through their expertise and their subject matter expertise in those fields. Law enforcement, we also recommend a law enforcement crisis response coordinator who can actually be in the room and present during all of the presentations. So if there's any questions that come up about tactical or safety situations or issues or concerns, and you have a community provider that's presenting at the time that question comes up, that officer's there and available to help assist and answer any of those questions. But the community engagement and partnerships is incredibly important for the success of a crisis response intervention training. For the participants, this course is designed for frontline law enforcement officers within agencies that have maybe not yet trained their officers in enhanced crisis intervention, as well as agencies that would like to update or refine or refresh some training strategies. I'll also note that during the pilot testing of the curriculum, we saw successful engagement and really good feedback from inviting community partners to attend this training and sit in on it. Dispatchers, firefighters, medics, community providers. We saw a lot of success with having them in the room and developing relationships and conversations that can happen through spending 40 hours together for a week. You know, a lot of those relationships are built at lunchtime, and just getting to know the providers and exchanging phone numbers and those types of things are so important for any successful program. It's about relationships, and this is no different than that. So we recommend, though, that the class size stays somewhere between 25 and 30. 25 is a really good sweet spot number as you're teaching this class. There's a tremendous amount of interaction that happens, a lot of conversation back and forth, Q&A, allowing yourselves time and capacity to get folks to do site visits and those different types of things that we'll talk about through the rest of the webinar today. So keeping the class size 25 to 30 is definitely recommended. Next slide, please. So what you're seeing here now is the proposed training matrix. You can see we've talked about it being a 40-hour training. The training curriculum includes 18 modules. They vary in length and learning styles. The modules focus on topical areas such as behavioral health, intellectual and developmental disabilities, community engagement resources, different systems and legal considerations, and a lot of scenario-based skills. You can see on your screen here, the last 2 days are spent, Thursday and Friday are spent on those skills and honing those skills, and the instructors providing crucial feedback and information to the folks that are the participants in that class. So we really spend a lot of time with hands-on practicing the skills that we talk about throughout the training. This is set up in design where there is some flexibility where you can move some of the modules around if you want to, but it's really meant that the modules build upon each other. Although you can do it to accommodate, your various instructors and trainers that you're going to be bringing in throughout the week, it is recommended that it stays as close to this as it can, so those modules are able to build upon each other, and you can make sure that the instructors that are coming in on Wednesday know what was taught on Monday and Tuesday, and they can build and expand on some of those ideas without repetition too. So next slide. So there's also on the website that you see here on the screen, there's a toolkit that comes with all of this information. The toolkit is available on informedpoliceresponses.com and includes resources needed to support the coordination and the delivery of a training in a law enforcement agency. And this, what you see here on the right-hand side, that's the actual cover of the instructor guide that this group was very involved in designing. Next slide. So the toolkit resources, there's a wealth of information on this, and when you open it up, it can look a little bit overwhelming because there's a lot of information. But we've broken it down into various tabs to help you navigate the site as best as we felt would work for the folks in the field that are trying to implement this. So the resources include an instructor guide that provides resources for local connections in the planning and delivery of CRIT, including the key roles and tasks to be completed before the training. This is if many of you, I'm sure, on this call have done 40-hour trainings. It takes a lot of planning and organization to get everybody on the same page and schedules organized, and the prep work that goes into these is extensive. There's a trainer's guide and PowerPoint presentations. What's very unique about this offering is that all of the PowerPoints are there. They're on the site. They're downloadable. But a lot of times PowerPoints can be open for interpretation and what the instructor sees on the screen. This comes with all of the trainer guides and materials and recommended talking points for all of the slides in all 18 modules. And it's nice because it can be tailored to the community. There's certain modules such as the veterans module or the people experiencing homelessness module. Those can be tailored to your community, and you can input your own statistical information and data and programs that you have in your community into those slide decks to make it local and relevant for your community. There's additional trainer materials and resources on there, including handouts, activities, and the instructions that go with those different activities. The participant guides also include the matrix, so they know what the schedule looks like for the week, the module learning objectives, the agenda, and they also have all of the slides that are available with note areas for them to take notes on as well. There's also really important pre and post training surveys if you're interested in data collection as to how the training was received pre and post. Those are available on there. There's a knowledge questionnaire that can be used to assess changes in the participants' knowledge in the various topics that are covered throughout the 40-hour curriculum. CRIT core concepts and essential tools for trainers. There's a resource library on there. It provides, there's a lot of recommended resources to support the planning and delivery of the CRIT 40-hour. And the supplemental materials, there's a lot of content and supplemental materials that are on there. There's additional modules, we call them the extended versions of some modules. They can be used as standalone trainings or refreshers on certain topics. There's a supplemental module on psychotic disorders on there right now. And we're in the process of completing additional supplemental modules on mood and anxiety disorders, disruptive and impulse control disorders, personality disorders. And there's also an extended module on legal and policy topics too. So these can be used as in-service trainings or other types of things that you may want to use. Under the supplemental materials tab, coming soon, we're in post-production right now for videos that will help you as you're setting up these trainings. So there's a video on the overview of CRIT excuse me, there's an overview on CRIT for law enforcement executives. So if you wanted to take this to the chief, hey boss, watch this video and see what you think. There's a video available for that. A selection of local trainers video, having the right instructor in the room is key to the success for certain modules. So there's a video on how to approach that and approach those local instructors. Preparing role players and scenarios, we want to make sure that we can make them as realistic and safe as we possibly can. So there's a video for that. There's also a live delivery of Module 1, which is the introduction and overview of CRIT. So if you were comfortable playing that Module 1 video, you could do that for your audience. If you're new to the instructor role or the coordination of one of these courses, you could watch that and develop some tips of your own to teach it yourself, or play that video for your students for your participants if you wanted to do that. There's also the final video is about the family and peer perspective panel and how to design and set those up and make sure that you're integrating not only people with lived experience throughout those panels, not just relying on family members, but it's important to hear from individuals themselves with those life experiences and the value in that we've seen throughout the pilot sites was tremendous to the participants in those classes. Next slide. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Neither, who will take us down memory lane. Chan?
Great. Thank you so much, Mike, and thank you, Robin, both of you, for giving us such a great overview to kick off the webinar. As Mike said, my name is Chan Neither, and I work at Policy Research Associates, or PRA, where I direct our firm's work on this project. I have had the pleasure for many years to be able to work with all of the panelists today, and I'll tell you, this is a very, very dedicated bunch that cares a lot about this work and has put a lot of heart and soul into the work. So I hope that those of you on the webinar today and those of you who may hear about the curriculum really find it to be a valuable tool to be used within your communities as part of your implementation or enhancement of your crisis response work at the local level. I also was fortunate to be able to serve as the principal investigator and project director for a prior cooperative agreement that was awarded to PRA in 2017 by the Bureau of Justice Assistance to develop, implement, and evaluate the program and the associated 40-hour training that was the predecessor to and basis for the current version of the National Crisis Response and Intervention Training Curriculum, or CRIT for short, that we're introducing today. That program, the BJA Valor Law Enforcement and Community Crisis Intervention Team Model Program, had three primary goals. The first was to enrich BJA's justice and mental health portfolios specific to law enforcement's response to and interaction with individuals with mental illness. The second was to implement a comprehensive and sustainable CIT response program strategy within each of the 4 participating law enforcement agencies. And the third was to conduct evaluations of all trainings and technical assistance to those participating agencies to gauge training and TA impact on the participating officers, agencies, and communities following program implementation. The cooperative agreement was funded to engage four law enforcement agencies from across the country to engage in and implement the Valor CIT program, including a full pilot testing of the 40-hour Valor CIT curriculum. To accomplish the project goals, we at PRA and our partners on that cooperative agreement, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, Crisis Intervention Team International, or CIT International, and the National Alliance on Mental Illness worked together to perform a set of 5 tasks with each of the selected law enforcement agencies. The focus of those tasks was to facilitate a strategic planning process using a modified sequential intercept model mapping process to develop an individual agency implementation plan. The second was to deliver the BJA Valor National 40-hour CIT training course to approximately 25 to 50 officer volunteers across within each 4 of the jurisdictions. The third goal was to deliver the CIT Train the Trainer curriculum to future local trainers of the 40-hour CIT training program. The fourth activity was to provide follow-up technical assistance to support the implementation of the CIT program locally. And finally, evaluating the training and technical assistance impact was a prominent feature of that work. In the prior program, the Valor program, 4 law enforcement agencies were selected to participate through a national solicitation that was received in May of 2018. The 4 participating law enforcement agencies in the Valor program included the Alamogordo, New Mexico Police Department, the Honolulu, Hawaii Police Department, the Huntsville, Alabama Police Department, and the St. Tammany Parish, Louisiana Sheriff's Office. Strategic planning events with each jurisdiction took place between July and August of 2018 and included collaborative partners from law enforcement, behavioral health, substance use, advocacy, peer support, fire EMS, local government, and community support services. Across the 4 sites, the BJA Valor National 40-hour CIT training course was delivered 6 times between December 2018 and March of 2019, graduating a total of 146 officers across those 6 deliveries. We also developed and delivered a Train the Trainer curriculum for that version of the curriculum, which we delivered 4 times, once in each of those jurisdictions, graduating a total of 59 site-based trainers across the 4 jurisdictions. For PRA, this program was not only about providing training to CIT officers, but also about developing a culture of CIT in each community. The CIT program demonstrated benefits to each of the 4 participating communities and the officers who participated in the BJA Valor program implementation efforts. Among significant findings of the evaluation were an increase in knowledge acquisition and the ability to maintain that knowledge over time, increased officer ability to apply learned skills post-training to respond and interact with individuals experiencing a mental health related crisis, increased community collaboration and resource sharing, development of sustainability plans beyond the work with the Valor program, increased diversion from jail through voluntary transportation or service referrals, and increased mental health call response rates across all sites. Through this work, we also learned quite a bit about necessary enhancements to the 40-hour training curriculum, which helped improve some of the program modifications and enhancements that we're talking with you about today to the existing curriculum. We've incorporated many of those suggestions and suggested enhancements into the CRIT or CRIT curriculum that we're talking about today. Some of the major enhancements that were identified through the Valor pilot program that were included in the enhancements made to the current CRIT version include the streamlining and tailoring of the information on mental illness to focus on what officers need to know to understand and appropriately respond to someone in mental health crisis. More specifically, providing less diagnostic specific information and more content regarding the signs and symptoms of mental illness and the behavioral manifestations that officers may encounter in the field. The inclusion of more information regarding the impact of trauma and its behavioral manifestations, including how to respond to individuals in a trauma-informed manner. And finally, the addition of a much more robust component regarding intellectual and developmental disabilities and responses to people with IDDs, which my colleague Leanne Kingsley is going to be talking about in just a moment. Next slide, please. As mentioned earlier, the national CRIT curriculum that we're introducing today was developed out of the Valor CIT curriculum with additional enhancements informed by the Valor pilot jurisdictions and by the expertise of additional subject matter experts, national statistics and research findings, and best practices for crisis response. After completing the curriculum enhancements to ensure that the enhanced curriculum would continue to be useful for law enforcement officers, we, along with the program partners, conducted a series of pilot tests with 4 selected police departments in 2022. These jurisdictions are displayed on the map that's on the current slide and include the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania Bureau of Police, the Shreveport, Louisiana Police Department, the Rapid City, South Dakota Police Department, and the Corvallis, Oregon Police Department. These 4 sites represented diversity in geography, agency size, and demographic makeup. Training participants and local trainers from each site provided thorough feedback following each training delivery, which was then used to inform, update, and finalize the curriculum modules and the overall crisis response and intervention training that we're presenting today. The CRIT curriculum underwent a comprehensive revision process that drew heavily from insights gained through the pilot site deliveries. Key areas of feedback ranging from participant engagement to content clarity were identified and addressed through careful revisions. These initial training deliveries played a pivotal role in shaping the curriculum's evolution and the final product that we are so pleased to be able to officially release to the field with today's webinar. And I just want to take a moment to recognize the 8 law enforcement agencies that participated in both the Valor initiative and the current academic-based training development initiative. Without their commitment to working with us on this project and their commitment to enhancing, implementing, and continuing the tradition of CIT and CRIT in their local communities, this effort would not have been possible. I just want to say thank you to all who were involved across those 8 sites, and kudos to all of those sites that I believe in one way or another are still continuing the work to this day that we were able to create with them and help support in their communities and their jurisdictions through this project. So with that, I will turn it over to Leanne McKingsley of the ARC, who will provide further discussion and talk more about the inclusion of content related specifically to responding to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Leanne?
Thank you, Chan. And I just want to say thank you to the amazing leadership that we've had for this project over the past 3 years. It has been amazing working with this team. And as part of the ARC of the United States, this is a key issue that we are really focusing on to raise awareness among law enforcement and others in the criminal justice field about people with IDD specifically. So having this opportunity to be involved in this project has been amazing. And one of the things that I've noticed throughout my career over the past 27 years is that there has been a significant need to bring more about people with IDD specifically into police training, as Robin talked about earlier. And that was a key reason why we wanted to focus on this in what was prior CIT training and now CRIT. And so what this training is doing is providing content, skills, and strategies throughout the entire curriculum to effectively respond to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Next slide, please. And I think it's important to understand the reason why. When we look at the research or the data that we do have on this topic, we know that people with intellectual developmental disabilities, they interact with the criminal justice system more often than those without disabilities. And if you look at the data here, you'll see that people with intellectual disabilities are 7 times more likely to experience sexual assault, as one example. They're 3 to 4 times more likely to experience some type of victimization. But then if you look at the other side, we know that people who are suspects or defendants also face a higher risk of being involved in the system. We have data from the Bureau of Justice statistics that show 2 in 10 prisoners and 3 in 10 jail inmates reported having some type of cognitive disability. So this is not a small population that we're talking about in terms of who are coming in contact with police on a regular basis. And that, again, is a key reason why we wanted to bring in more, not just on intellectual and developmental disabilities, but actually people themselves who can talk about their own experiences. Next slide. So I wanted to mention a little bit about how we did this. And we worked talking through our team about different ways that we could bring this in, not just in an academic way, but in a very practical, kind of boots on the ground way. How do we make sure that this is practical information for officers? How do we understand what it is that they want to know about this topic? And so with that, we were able to bring in more information throughout the training curricula, not just in one area. And here's some of the areas that we really wanted to focus on. One is in disability, culture, and community. So in Module 2, this is called Perceptions and Attitudes on Behavioral Health and Disabilities. We brought more information on IDD in that. So we're able to start right from the beginning of the curriculum talking about disabilities in a different way. And also I should mention that we're looking at bringing in people with disabilities to talk about this throughout the curriculum wherever it is possible. So you could have someone with autism, for example, speaking from their own experience about what it's like to have autism in this module. Another area is in the actual module on IDD. So that is Module 7, as you'll see on your screen. We also have an example of the initial page of that here, so you can get an idea of what that looks like. But in this module, we get into the very specifics of looking at characteristics of someone that may have an IDD. How do you identify this disability? Strategies for responding more effectively. And this goes into looking at different videos, for example, that help you understand stimming and what stimming might look like. So again, very practical how to understanding what IDD is, not just the diagnosis, but moving beyond diagnosis to understanding the culture of disability and how would you actually respond to someone that has an IDD. There is another opportunity in this module to include someone with an IDD. Again, bringing in that personal lived experience is so important, and it really goes a long way in building those relationships between the disability community and the criminal justice community. And then finally, in the Module 8, we've got family and peer perspectives panel. And this tends to be one of the most popular modules because this is the opportunity, again, to hear straight from the community. And you may be familiar with these in CIT training where you have seen or heard from people with mental health disabilities or mental illness. And so what we're looking at doing is really expanding that so that we're including people with IDD as well. And throughout the country, we have roughly 550 chapters of the ARC. There's also the Autism Society. There's other different types of nonprofits that serve specifically people with intellectual developmental disabilities that law enforcement can reach out to start building relationships, but also ways to incorporate people with disabilities themselves into the training. And this is a great way to do that on the Family and Peer Perspectives panel. And in doing this, I also had the opportunity to pilot this with the other my other team members here today. And it was really great to see just the different types of relationships that were being built just by reaching out to the chapter of the ARC or one of the other disability organizations. And it can take a little time finding those individuals. So we recommend that when you're reaching out to those chapters or those disability organizations to see if there may be people first groups or other groups that help people with disabilities learn how to tell their stories. And that is an excellent way to incorporate people with disabilities into the training. Next slide. So a few more ways that we have incorporated people with IDD is looking at modules 11 and 12 15, 16 through 18. So I wanted to mention in Module 11, we're looking at personal connections, and we're recommending that at site visits, that wherever site visits include delivery to IDD services, that people with disabilities can be able to interact with law enforcement. And in a couple of different places, we saw this was very effective in helping officers kind of just have an opportunity to interact with people with disabilities where it wasn't forced, where there wasn't a crisis situation happening in the moment. And this really allowed more of a natural way to get to know each other in the community. Another area is in Module 12 on legal and policy topics. This includes content on laws and policy specific to disability rights. And while there has been some information on that in the past training, we really tried to bring more on IDD specifically in this area and bring a little bit more on understanding this issue from the disability rights perspective. And then Module 15 includes community resources, and we are encouraging the inclusion of representatives from the IDD service system to describe their own services. So when you're having someone from a local group home or someone from another type of service system that's able to explain what they do, this really goes a long way in helping the officer better understand who to reach out to, knowing who they should call should something come up. And there can be other outcomes from that too, perhaps developing plans of actions, knowing who to call, having a list of people to call. There's all kinds of really positive things that can come out of having people from the IDD service system actually speak to police one-on-one and in these training sessions. And then lastly, within our modules 16 to 18 around scenario-based skills training, we want to include people with IDD as much as possible in these scenarios. And we were able to pilot that throughout the pilot sessions, and we saw that this really made, again, a huge impact in having officers just feel more comfortable working with people with disabilities, getting a chance to see how they might respond in different case scenarios. And we were able to look at what scenarios might work best and work with different police departments to bring those scenarios together. So all of this has really encouraged the team. It's encouraged us to feel very strongly about just the sense of how strong this curriculum has become because of all of the input that we've had from law enforcement throughout the country and people with IDD and those that they serve as well. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Domingo to talk a little bit about the implementation plan.
Okay, hello everyone. Good to see you, and thank you for joining us. I must say, we got to say, based on who's joined, we got to say good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, as we've had, fortunately, have folks from around the world that have joined the webinar, and that makes us very happy as partners in this initiative, looking at what is possible when so many good partners get together. I'm Domingo Jerez. I'm the Director of Programs here at IACP. As you've heard, the curriculum has been many years in the making with pilot testing and an intense, thoughtful process with a very high level of expertise and partnership. Remember this word partnership. It's the key to the success of this initiative at the state and local levels and other country levels where you get into this. A very special thank you to BJA for providing the leadership necessary to address this important need for accessible, standardized, and high quality training. It is their vision that made all this magnificent work happen. Yes, you've heard that it's been years in the making, but with this high level of expertise and participation, projects like this take a long time to develop, to get it just right, and to have the right partners on it. Law enforcement officers have been increasingly tasked with, as most of you know, with responding to crises, including incidents involving people with mental illness and intellectual and developmental disabilities, such as that which we're trying to capture in the course. Officers get into the profession because they want to help people. They often lack the specific training and resources needed to effectively manage these types of calls for service involving people with mental illness and intellectual and developmental disabilities. Officers also lack the education. They can lack the education. Some of the group that's on this call have a decent background. Others, the vast majority of officers, do lack this legal education and understanding of how to and what are their responsibilities and obligations to interact with this population. This lack of resources and knowledge enhances potential risks to both officers and individuals with mental illness and intellectual and developmental disabilities during the interactions. We've seen some of you note that in the chat, and we appreciate that because, again, that's at the foundation of what we're trying to do and share with you here today. These situations present significant challenges for community members and officers, highlighting the need for clear policy direction and training in the law enforcement community to serve these populations. As was mentioned, CRIT was developed to address these gaps and better prepare law enforcement officers to respond to people experiencing crises related to mental health and intellectual disabilities. Supported by BJA's Collaborative CRIT Award, and the IACP serves as a lead training and technical assistance partner in partnership with Policy Research Associates. These groups are here with us today, the National Policing Institute, and the ARC of the United States. Through this partnership, we continue to support law enforcement and the communities that are engaged in these type of initiatives. IACP is currently providing CRIT training and technical assistance for 26 specific law enforcement sites and 10 correction agencies from over the United States. Next slide. As you can see in this slide, a lot of things are happening. Many of the chats and questions that you have been that have been popping up ask specifically about where do I get technical assistance? How do I get access to this? Where can I communicate to find out more information? This is a great slide for you to have to realize you got customized technical assistance, you got site needs assessment of it, peer-to-peer learning. Someone mentioned that in the chat. Webinars, publications, CRIT Connect. We've created a community of practice for everybody. IACP's networking experience, and ultimately the implementation plan going forward. This is the kickoff, not the end of this initiative. For more information about all of these efforts and opportunities, please go to send an email rather to crit@theiacp.org. I'd put up there the email address, but that's a lot harder, or not the email, the website address, but that's a lot harder to both read and for you to write down. So if you remember crit@theiacp.org, I'm sure you'll be able to get all the information you need, what was covered in this course, as well as the curriculum and information itself. So we're very excited to be part of this. We're excited for the partnership. We know that through our partners, we've given you the framework to implement this program at the local level. And yes, most importantly, the word I said before, it will need a broad partnership to implement this successfully. Not one group can do it alone, just like you see these group of partners in very different spaces, but connected together to make this happen. You're going to need the same thing at the local level. So on behalf of the IACP, I want to thank you for your time and service to the policing profession and those who are serving in the communities as well. And let me turn it over to Brooke from BJA. Brooke.
Thanks, Domingo. I do want to talk a little bit more about the resources that BJA has available to support CRIT implementation. If you can click on the next slide. Thank you. So here are some additional resources that may be of interest to you. They will be populated into the chat, so you can click on the resources directly and bookmark them. I would highly recommend doing so. The first is the Academic Training for Police Responses, and this is a national initiative to enhance police engagement with people with behavioral health conditions and developmental disabilities. This program offers support, resources, and tools to specifically train law enforcement the use of evidence-informed and best practices in crisis response. The second link is the BJA's Police Mental Health Collaboration Toolkit, PMHC, which provides step-by-step guidance for departments that want to design and implement police and mental health collaboration. It includes resources for law enforcement agencies to partner with service providers, advocates, and individuals with mental illness and/or intellectual and developmental disabilities. The goal of these partnerships is to ensure the safety of all, to respond effectively, and to improve access to services and supports for people with mental illness and IDD. The third link is the Law Enforcement Mental Health Learning Site program, and this serves as a peer-to-peer learning program for law enforcement agencies seeking to build collaborative responses for people who have mental health needs. The learning sites are a resource for agencies looking to tailor successful implementation strategies and response models to address their own distinct problems and circumstances. The program started in 2010 with an initial group of 6 highly innovative agencies serving as peer-to-peer learning sites. And since then, it's continued to expand and regularly deliver assistance and training to law enforcement and mental health practitioners nationwide. And finally, the Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program. JMHCP is the program that really brings people to the table from both justice and behavioral health and creates long-term change for communities and people with behavioral health conditions. It's a wonderful program because it allows communities the flexibility to meet the needs of the people they serve. It is so wide and broad, it can do just about anything you need it to do. This is really the fire starter in the community. It's a meaningful amount of money and provides services, salaries, backfill for training, contracts, subrecipients to fill gaps, training, and travel. I also wanted to share that JMHCP has 2 support centers that offer free on-demand training and consultation. Center staff will provide support that is tailored to meet your needs, including example policies, advice about program design, connection to subject matter experts, arranging visits to a learning site, and even more. The first support center, if you click on the Get Support link, is the Center for Justice and Mental Health Partnerships. Reach out to this support center if you're interested in developing or improving initiatives related to the jails, courts, reentry, community-based services, statewide efforts, and more. The second support center at that link is the Law Enforcement Mental Health Collaboration Support Center. You can reach out to them if you're interested in improving law enforcement and community responses, 911 initiatives, crisis services, and more. So now I'm going to hand it back over to Mike for some question and answers.
Thanks, Brooke. Sorry for the delay. My screen was stalled there for a little bit. So if you do have questions, make sure that you put those in the Q&A that you'll see on your Zoom screen at the should be at the bottom. Put those in there, and we will be happy to go through some of those and field those as we're going through. Looks like many of these, Domingo's doing a great job answering for us. So thanks, Domingo. Let's see here. So Charles Kenneth has a question about when incorporating persons with IDD into the scenarios, is it recommended that the same person with that lived experience who interacted with the officers also play a part in the role plays, or should it be a different person? Leanne, what do you think about that?
I think that it can be the same person, depending on the amount of experience that that person has had in doing this type of training, how comfortable they feel in the training scenario. One of the things that we recognized is that there definitely needs to be time for the individual with IDD to have enough preparation time. So one of the biggest issues is just ensuring that that is there, just as if someone who's coming in to speak on a panel, for example, they have been given enough time to do that. And what's great about this CRIT curriculum is that it provides that built-in understanding of how do you do that, ensuring that you have the tools that you know how to make that happen. And so that is something that really has been missing before. So I really appreciate that question, because we thought long and hard about how to ensure that we're doing this in a way that gives you the tools you need to feel like you can do it effectively. So thank you so much for that. And I hope that that covered the question.
Yeah, thanks for that response, Leanne. There is a question in here that I wanted to bring up and expand on a little bit. Domingo put an answer in here, but I wanted to just expand on it a little bit. Is CRIT designed to be delivered in addition to 40 hours CIT, or as a comprehensive replacement for CIT? And Domingo did a very good job of answering the question. It's not a replacement for CIT. It includes a lot of topics that are covered in CIT. It has a lot of updated components and statistics that are important for the instruction that we do. But this can be part of your CIT program. Remember, the T in CIT stands for team, not training. So this certainly can, be a supplement for that part of your CIT program. You can use this in your CIT program, but it can also be really relevant to any other crisis response things that your community may have. If you don't have a CIT program or a CIT crisis intervention team, and say you have a mobile crisis or a co-response, this is a tool that you could utilize to help with those programs also. So I just want to expand on that a little bit. I don't know if any of other panelists have anything to add about that, or.
Well, that was the part that it's the R in CRIT, right?
Yes.
That is really the new piece, right? That there can
Yes.
be multiple methods to respond to persons in crisis. You might have a crisis intervention team, but quite honestly, a lot of agencies and communities don't. They don't have those resources available, or they've elected to go a different direction in terms of their response. And so this is still a training that can be used across those response models. So thank you, Mike. I think that was a great clarification.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks, Domingo, for answering it in the chat too. Any other panelists have any thoughts on that? Okay. This is not a question, but it is a shout out to our ASL interpreters on this webinar, and it is in the Q&A, but I wanted to acknowledge them and thank you so much for your service and for being with us today. So any other questions that anybody has, you can, feel free to put those in the Q&A and we'll hop on any of those that you have. So question, where do we access the CRIT materials on the IACP website? Do we need a login to do that? Domingo?
Yeah, no login necessary, and I'll post the site.
Awesome, thank you. I beat you to your typing. I see you were typing on there.
Yeah, that's okay.
How about any other thoughts or questions? There's 253 of you on this webinar. I know somebody has a question they can put in there.
I see a couple that are popping up. I don't know if that's helpful, Mike, for us to read out some of them to you.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't, maybe I'm froze or something. I'm not seeing them.
How do you become certified to teach to law enforcement is one question. And then a second question, can the training also be implemented in hostage negotiation training?
I don't know that we contemplated hostage negotiation. So
Go ahead
and
talk a little bit
yeah.
about the first one if you want.
Yeah, go ahead, Chan. How certified to teach? Go ahead and
Sure.
take that one.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to remember, as Mike reiterated, this is 40-hour training. It's not an entire program. So part of it will be, dependent upon what's going on within your jurisdiction. So for instance, if you have an existing CIT program that wants to adopt this curriculum as their training component of the CIT program, you would, do that locally, whatever, the procedures, the steps that you would go through locally to become a CIT trainer. We also are going to be developing with the new funding that Domingo provided an overview with, a national train the trainer program. I think we're still working on exactly, how that's going to roll out, what those resources are going to be, when they're going to be available. But that's just a little bit of foreshadowing for some of the work that's going to be coming up here in the next year or two. So you'll also have the opportunity, most likely, to have access to a trainer manual that will help, and perhaps a train the trainer program that will help support you if you want to become a certified trainer.
Chen, that's an excellent point. And again, as we emphasize, it's partnership. It's all these groups here on this, delivering this information, working with all of you to actually make this happen. And as Brooke mentioned, this is the kickoff. This is the beginning. And after a lot of work over a lot of years with all these groups. And so one of the best things I can recommend is all of these questions that are coming in now as well, like the one I see in front of me, is there a central place, existing evaluations on CRIT, et cetera. There's a lot that has not been contemplated because of this is the rollout. Well, the beauty is that community of practice. It's a place you can go where you can actually put these type of questions. Hey, I'm looking for a model policy, or I'm looking for X. We will all have access to that and our ability to respond. So, please consider that, because again, this is just the beginning and our opportunity to help you all roll this out. And that's BJA's number one goal, is to make sure this gets out to every place possible that is interested, and ultimately, eventually, even those that have not yet expressed interest but will express interest. So this is the beginning. So please consider that. Get involved with the community of practice. Any of your additional questions, send to crit@theiacp.org, and folks will coordinate with our practitioners. Like, you didn't hear me speaking up about IDD. That's Leanne's area, right? And same thing with the Police Foundation and our other part, PRA. Everyone brings something different to this. So we're going to rely on our partnership to get the right answers to you all.
That's great, Domingo. Thank you. And to answer the research piece, that question, as the researcher on this team, we're going to continually be testing this training, right? We tested it in a pilot test, but we're going to be continually building the knowledge and evidence base around this curricula, but also around other response models, and pulling all of that information together for you. There are best practice guides that are available, but in addition, we have done a deep dive into what we know about what works regarding the different response models as well. And all of that is available on the website for you to peruse at your leisure. But I do have a question here in the chat. Has this been successful on college campuses? And I have to say, having spent a lot of years on a college campus, this is exactly the type of training that we need for our campus law enforcement officers. And I do know that that CIT training specifically has been used on college campuses for a number of years now. CRIT is absolutely appropriate here, and especially because, again, we have different types of responses, and a campus law enforcement community has a whole host of additional resources that many local communities might not have direct access to. And that's a real opportunity, particularly for those college campuses that are affiliated, for example, with a hospital or other things. So yes, the answer is yes, absolutely. We need to continue pushing this in all different types of law enforcement agencies and communities of all different things, all different types. This can be tailored to your specific needs.
Yeah, and I found those questions, Robin. They were in the chat. I was looking in the Q&A, so keep them both open, Mike, and there's questions in there. So the other question that you mentioned, Robin, was, can this training be also implemented in hostage negotiation trainings? And there are components in this that would have value to hostage negotiators. The FBI's behavioral stairway of change is one of the slides actually in this curriculum. So there may be very relevant material that you would want to consider for negotiators. Let's see here. Research question, at what point will this be considered evidence-based practice?
Robin.
I knew you were waiting for me. It's interesting. What is evidence-based practice, right? So right now, this is evidence-informed. That means that we have built this on a body of work of what we know works previously and also the other specialty areas. To become an evidence-based practice, right, that we have accumulated enough information about as this training rolls out, is there a difference in our officers' response and what the outcomes then look like? So we'll be building that along the way. I can tell you very directly, this is evidence informed. But as we continue to innovate, we have to then make sure that we're testing what we're doing along the way and build that knowledge base. Building the knowledge base takes a long time, but we want to make sure that along the way that we don't have unintended consequences, right? So something that we weren't anticipating, a negative outcome that might have occurred. So that's why we do the pilot test, and that's why we continue to test along the way to make sure that we can reduce any likelihood of an unintended consequence. So the answer is evidence-informed, making our way to evidence-based knowledge.
Thanks, Robin. Here's a question. As a forensic psychologist, how do I move forward as a civilian for our department for certain certifications? Are there any I need? We do not have a CRIT program. So I'm guessing that she's looking to be certified as an instructor or a teacher in this. So. I think for me, my perspective on it is it depends. Like, it depends on what your state, what your governing bodies say or qualify as a certification. If your organization or state is post standards, you may have to get this curriculum submitted to post in order for it to be approved and accepted by post standards. And there may be other governing bodies throughout other states that may have to actually certify this curriculum. The good news is it's funded and implemented through the Federal Bureau of Justice Assistance. So it doesn't get much higher and better than that for credibility in this field. Any other questions?
Mike, I just wanted to point out one of the chats said, as a trainer for both CIT and CRIT, I want to support what the speakers have said. CRIT provides actual PowerPoints, training manuals, and how-tos that are comprehensive and state-of-the-art. So thank you for that shout out. And I do think that that has been one of the really exciting things about working on this curriculum in particular, is that we were able to grow what has been in the field and try to bring a more comprehensive, like, ready to go, here you go, easier to use product. And so hopefully that's something that we're able to do for everyone. So again, we're really excited to hear from all of you as you start putting this into practice.
Absolutely. That's a great spot to close out the Q&A session, Leanne. So thank you for that. So we'll close out this session, move to the next slide. So just quick information, the grant number that you see here on your screen provided the funding for this webinar and this project. The points of views or opinions in this webinar are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Justice. Next slide. Thank you again to our just incredibly talented panelists that have been here and put so much time and effort into the rollout of what you saw, and the ability that you have now to access this material is an incredible step forward in crisis response and intervention training. We're very, very excited about it. Again, if you want to access our work, you can look at Informed Police Responses website, and you can access and download the materials. If you have any questions about anything, you can reach out to any of us on this panel, or specific to Domingo's response and how to email specific questions regarding any of this, but a huge shout out to Chan Neither, Leanne McKingsley, Robin Engel, Domingo Jerez, and our just incredible group of panelists. Brooke, thank you so much for being here with us today, taking time to do this, and I'm really looking forward to what the future holds for the CRIT. Thanks for attending, everybody. Have a great day.